So I was watching opening night, Warriors versus Lakers in the second quarter. So the Warriors actually kind of played this lineup of Jordan Poole, James Wiseman, Dante DiVincenzo, Jonathan Kuminga, and Moses Moody. That lineup was +4 in the minutes that they played. It was small sample sizes, sure, but those minutes, that could be just like a little hint into the bigger picture for the Warriors, what their plans are. So what are the Warriors actually trying to do? Well, let's actually talk first about this little lineup. Wiseman, Poole, Kuminga, Moody. That lineup was +4 against the Lakers. James Wiseman, he has not played much due to injuries. He's shown that he can be a serviceable big man for Kevon Looney so far. He's got a ton of length, can cover space fast, super athletic. He's also got decent, pretty good, above average defensive instincts too. One of the underrated things that he brings to the Warriors is basically a consistent rebounding presence for all 48 minutes. When you have Looney and you replace him with James Wiseman, that's a pretty good big man rotation. They're also not exactly asking him to do much on offense. Just play the pick and roll hard to the rim, finish plays, grab offensive rebounds, just a lot of the small things. Jonathan Kuminga, he was the prospect that was said to be the next Paul George. He's still pretty raw, but you can see the flashes, the fluidity in his game, the wingspan, the length. He can block shots for his position. He can get into passing lanes. He can actually become, if developed correctly, into a great two-way perimeter player in the future. Moses Moody, on the other hand, he brings even more shooting to the Warriors than they already even have. If the Warriors can kind of convince him to play a 3-and-D role, he would fit perfectly next to Kuminga on the perimeter and Wiseman in the interior, spacing the floor. He's got much more to his game, of course. He is a pretty talented player, but the team may actually just want him just to not do too much, play his role. Moving on to Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole is Jordan Poole. He's actually NBA champion Jordan Poole, and he just got his contract extension, so I'm not going to talk too much about him. We already know what he brings to this team. He already fits in with the veteran core alongside Curry and Clay and Draymond. But he can also come off the bench. He can also come off the starting lineup, and he also fits into the timeline with Wiseman, Kuminga, Moody. They can actually use Jordan Poole's example of fitting into the system to also buy in. They can all kind of develop together in the system, the Warriors system, in the Warriors winning culture, in a world-class organization, and develop all in-house. There's always a world, sure, in which James Wiseman gets injured again, becomes injury prone. Kuminga never reaches his ceiling with a reduced role, but I trust in the Warriors. They now also have promoted Jama to assistant coach. I'm not going to pronounce his last name. On the other hand, he was the mastermind behind the developmental machine for the Toronto Raptors. We already know the all-star level players that he helped develop there, Siakam, Fred VanVleet. So if I'm betting my money, chances of their development being a success, chances are pretty high. I would bet on most of these players developing into impactful players. So if we're talking big picture, there is an immediate effect and a long-term plan. The immediate effect, if these young players can step up the season, is just that the Warriors can be competitive this season. The Warriors, they lost a few, rotational players from their championship roster. Otto Porter Jr., Gary Payton II. They didn't specifically have to go and replace them because they already had Kuminga and Moody playing minimal minutes, but meaningful minutes last season as rookies. Wiseman didn't play at all really, and Jordan Poole, now he can actually go take a bigger role as he's already proven to have success with the vets, and he also fits into the timeline of the younger players. So this is going to show up, strengthening the depth the Warriors had last season, the same depth that made a huge difference in the finals when the Warriors kept bringing player after player after player off the bench that were actually contributing in some way to the game, and the Celtics just could not actually keep up with that. Wiseman and Kuminga have great two-way potential. Their ceiling on that side is pretty high, and they're also pretty versatile on defense, which is super useful with bench players. And the Warriors starters they can still run the starters, run their core. They're still pretty dominant. This is going to be especially helpful. This depth from the young players is going to be especially helpful this season because the Western Conference has got a whole bunch of tough opponents now. Luka and the Mavs look much more deadly now with Christian Wood. Ja Morant seems to have taken like another leap. He might actually be in the MVP race early days, but keep that in mind. Their biggest competition though to the Warriors is probably the Clippers. The Clippers have two superstars, great coaching with Ty Lue, and a ton of reliable veteran players coming off the bench. That's kind of the difference between the Warriors bench. The Warriors bench is filled with young, inexperienced players. It's entirely possible, it's entirely possible that the Warriors, their young players, end up showing their age under the bright lights. That's actually a big reason why championship teams, they do kind of prefer veteran players over younger, more sophomore type of players like these guys. But these players, they have been with the Warriors organization their entire career so far. They've been in this culture. They know to follow the game plan because none of them really, I'm pretty sure everyone in the city of San Francisco knows none of these players will ever be as great as Steph Curry is. So they need to fall in line. And that gets me to my third point. Steph Curry and the GOAT conversation. This era of the Warriors was the version where the team was heavily dependent on Curry. In the future, he can actually let the reins of the offense go more and more as he ages. They can let Kuminga, Poole, Andrew Wiggins, of course, run the offense as they grow into their roles over time. Curry can still be impactful because his shooting is not going to just go away as he ages. That's actually one great thing about his style of play. It's not dependent on a whole bunch of athleticism. But the bigger offensive roles, the load, can be taken on by the younger players and relieve that pressure and the physical toll it will take on Curry's body. And thus, reducing that load on his body is going to elongate his playing career, his run, and his resume. Curry already has 4 titles, 1 Finals MVP, 2 MVPs itself, and the title as the greatest shooter of all time. But this is what's going to actually help Steph Curry get that deserved respect in the GOAT conversation. A lot of people do not include Steph Curry in the GOAT conversation, but it's entirely possible that Steph Curry, Klay, Draymond, they're all over 32 years of age. Sure, they're old, so they could end up getting injured as they age, and they're the main engine for the championships in the Bay. But Steph Curry already has 4 rings, 2 regular season MVPs. The Warriors are favored to go back to the finals in the West, at least. Imagine the Warriors win again because their young players provide this incredible depth. That's 5 rings for Steph Curry. He also looks like he's very much in his prime. I would probably say he can play at this level for maybe at least another 3 seasons. His game's gonna kind of age like wine. Even at a reduced level, he can still play for another 3 seasons. So at the minimum, I can probably see him play, say, another minimum 6 more seasons. I don't think it's so much of a hot take if I say in those 6 seasons, the Warriors can win another 2 rings. They could easily, at that point, be considered the greatest dynasty in NBA history. Imagine Steph, he retires with a resume of 5 or 6 rings, 2 regular season MVPs, one of them being the first ever unanimous MVP, 1 or 2 finals MVPs in the future. He might win another finals MVP, the title of the greatest shooter of all time. He was part of the greatest dynasty of all time. He was part of the 73-9 team. He dominated his era as well, consistently beating Kevin Durant, consistently beating LeBron. And I think that is the bigger story that's going on in Golden State. If the younger players develop and help extend this Warriors dynasty run, for myself and a lot of people that didn't actually watch Michael Jordan and the Bulls win 6 rings, we did get to live through the Warriors dynasty. For us, it would be very easy for us to make that argument that Steph Curry is the greatest player of all time.